Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed Lee. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville, located in the shadow of the Great Blue Hills in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you are joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in our mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Audible, Amazon, Castbox, Player FM, Boomplay, Ghana, wherever you find your favorite shows. Two wonderful guests for you today. First up, Jean Huxtable Hammersky is here to celebrate Parker's Pumpkin. And later in the show, we speak to Tina Neely, who is celebrating Bacon's very important Christmas job. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Carol Selleck's Musical Me collection of picture books. This collection inspires kids to embark on a musical journey, and you're going to love it. Play For Me, Peter captures the excitement, challenge, and joy of making music. Sing For Me, Sarah encourages children to step into the spotlight and find their own voice with a beautiful original song at the end of the book. And at the end of Play For Me, Peter, you're going to find an original song to help kids learn how to read music and play a musical instrument. Both Play For Me, Peter and Sing For Me, Sarah are available at Amazon and at Carol's website, carolselleckbooks.com.
Come one, come all, for the mind-bending, dungeon-stomping, time-shifting, dragon-slaying adventure of a lifetime.
What's happening?
Something bigger is happening here.
Yeah.
And someone else is calling these shots.
I'm your biggest fan. I don't want you dying in the third episode. Guardians of the Game is a real play Dungeons & Dragons podcast that's sure to excite and delight listeners of all ages.
How would you like your very own circus show right here?
Something good or something bad?
That is up to interpretation.
Whether you're a seasoned D&D veteran or looking for a wholesome but epic way to get into the game for the first time, Guardians of the Game has you covered. Let's get gaming, Guardians.
Well, my work here is done.
Guardians of the Game premieres on September 18th with new episodes every Wednesday.
This episode is brought to you by Daphne Draws Data. From the imaginative mind of best-selling author Cole Nussbaumer-Knaflick and the vibrant illustrations of John Skewers comes a story that will captivate kids and grown-ups alike. Daphne is not your ordinary dragon. She doesn't breathe fire. She breathes life into numbers, turning them into pictures that solve mysteries, forge friendships, and save the day. Daphne's journey celebrates unique talents, the power of teamwork, and the beauty of seeing the world through a different lens. This dragon's tale is perfect for parents and educators to inspire the next generation of curious minds and innovative thinkers. Get your copy today. Daphne Draws Data. Join us right now from the great state of Wisconsin. Our guest is here today to celebrate her new children's book. It's called Parker's Pumpkin. Please welcome to the show, Jean Huxtable Hammersky. Hey, Jean, how are you?
Doing good.
Jean was telling me before the show that she is in the city of Green Bay, home of the Packers.
That's right.
Must be exciting right now, an exciting time of year as the football season is, we're just a few weeks away from the start of the season.
Yeah, it's underway. We get news in the newspaper on TV all year round about the Packers.
Well, let's talk about Parker's Pumpkin. Tell us about the book, please.
The story itself starts with Grandma and Parker, about her 9-year-old grandson, and they find a seed that's awfully large. They don't know what it's going to grow into, so they decided Parker decides, let's plant it. So they plant it, and it starts growing, and the vine gets longer, and being that it's being raised in Wisconsin and it's November, the weather is getting colder. So they decide to bring the plant inside, and from there, it takes over Grandma's whole living room, and Parker can't find Grandma when he comes over to see her. And so they began talking about, well, you know, what's going to grow in this vine, and they finally see a little pumpkin growing, but it's supercharged, and it grows bigger and bigger and bigger until it takes over Grandma's whole living room, and they begin trying to figure out how are they going to get it out of the house. The community gets involved, coming by and peeking through windows and giving their opinions of what to do, and they finally come up with the idea of having a pumpkin pie celebration. So Grandma and Parker cut up the whole pumpkin, and they hand it out to the neighbors, and they have a celebration out in the streets, like a fall festival, and everyone makes pumpkin pies, and they have a great time. So that's kind of a summary of it. You know, there's other little details that happen. And then at the end of the book, there's a couple of pages that talk about, in real life, these giant 2,000-pound pumpkins that people all over the world grow. And before this story even came about in my mind, I had just learned and visited a gardener who was growing 2,000-pound pumpkins, and he actually gave me seeds, and I gave Parker a seed to try to plant and grow in these pumpkins, and he grew a huge long vine and a smallish pumpkin. But then he and his dad, who is my son, started talking about, well, what if you did bring it inside? What would happen? And that's kind of how the story took off. So at the end of the book, I put a couple pages in of facts about these 2,000-pound pumpkins that people actually grow and have competitions for, and put in some recipes that people can make with pumpkins, and talk about I put in some facts about gardening and composting and things like that. So
Really?
that's what kind of the content of the book, the story.
Such a neat story. As you're speaking, I'm sitting imagining reading the story to my daughter when she was 5 or 6 years old, and just imagining the vine in our living room, and, you know, it encompassing the whole room, and then that giant pumpkin. What a fun experience that would have been.
Yeah. The book can be for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, even kids who are 9 who like gardening and imagination and what would happen, you know, and it stimulates, I hope it stimulates the intergenerational aspect of gardening, you know, that besides your peers gardening, you can garden and grow things with your grandparents and with uncles and aunts and neighbors, and I'm hoping that it stimulates even healthy eating. You know, that you can make good foods with pumpkins and vegetables that you grow. And the whole idea, I wanted to bring in the idea of the community too. There are community gardens, but you know, when communities come together around an issue, something as imaginative as a huge pumpkin in someone's house, we can come up with solutions that can celebrate and enhance families, enhance communities, enhance the environment, and so on.
Yeah. I love that you're celebrating intergenerational relationships. I think that's so very, very important. I've said here on the show many times, my grandmother was one of my best friends. We did lots of great, crazy things together, and my kids had the good fortune of being able to spend lots of time with my mom before she passed, and still are able to be with my beautiful wife's mom. I think I don't think people understand how very important those relationships can be.
Yeah. And, some families, they're divided. They're so far away from each other. My own family, when I wrote this story and eventually it came into a book, Parker, my grandson, was in Alabama. So, it's hard. It's hard to be a grandparent the way you want to be a grandparent when your grandchildren are so far away. Mm-hmm. One of the positives about technology these days, though, is FaceTiming. Mm-hmm. And that is amazing because we can walk around the house, we can with the phone, and this is what look at how my green peppers are growing, or here's this new thing we're doing. And it's funny with kids when they get on FaceTime because, the phone's like this. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you see the ceiling, sometimes the floor, but at least there's a connection there that they're sharing with you face to face. So that's been a positive.
Yeah, technology is it's a beautiful thing as long as we're in control of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Did you always aspire to be a children's author?
I didn't. I was a speech and language pathologist for 35 years, and I worked with all populations from 90 years old down to 3. But I spent a lot of time with the preschoolers, the 3 through 6-year-old kids. And I think that would be my favorite. Mm-hmm. So I was always tuned toward them. And in my work as a speech therapist, I used a lot of picture books in my therapy with them, talking about vocabulary words, speech sounds, and so on. So, and I've always been a reader since the day I was born, basically. I always asked for books for my birthday and Christmas and any other time. I loved libraries. So I've always been tuned toward books. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and picture books especially, yeah.
Well, I have to thank you on behalf of your many students and clients. I had a horrendous speech impediment when I was very young, and a great therapist, Mr. Wallenus, worked with me in kindergarten, first grade, and it rears its ugly head every once in a while, especially when I'm tired of dealing with many words strung together that begin with F or S. Mm-hmm. But here I am today, running a podcast.
That's amazing. It's some of those speech problems that people have as preschoolers will last a lifetime. Mm-hmm. My dad stuttered when he was little, and he became a minister who preached every Sunday. And there were certain words that we could tell that he would get, small words. And when he got tired, when he got stressed, overwhelmed by things, he would start to have a little more problems. But yeah, that happens. Mm-hmm.
I have a question. You mentioned your dad was a minister. I've had the pleasure of having dinner with an amazing Christian recording artist whose name is Jason Gray. And Jason has an absolutely beautiful voice, and his songs are just wonderful. And he loves to tell stories. And when he sings perfectly. Mm-hmm. But he has a hard time getting a sentence out because he has a very, very bad stutter. And I'm curious, how does that work? Scientifically, it's like your brain and it helps you talk and helps you sing. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
Any idea why that is?
Well, stuttering, there's all kinds of research as to what causes it, why it happens, and so on. So there's no definitive answer to that, except for that singing has its own rhythm that you follow. And when we're talking like you and I are talking right now, it's very spontaneous. And you don't know the words that might come out. You don't know the rhythm of the sentence or the accents on the words because it's all spontaneous. Whereas in music and you're singing, you have the words, you have the rhythm, you even have the tones, the intonation, and everything's right there for you. So it makes it a little bit easier.
Interesting. That's fascinating. And I suppose as you're saying that, do you think is related to, we talk about rhyming picture books and how wonderful they are for kids and helping kids gain confidence in reading. Mm-hmm. Is that perhaps related to what you were just saying?
It could be because in rhyming books, you have that beat, you have that rhythm, da 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 da. It's a consistent rhythm that they have. I've never seen research on that, so I'm just kind of guessing now.
Interesting. It's one of the reasons I love being the host of Reading with Your Kids is I get to talk to not only authors but fascinating people who are really knowledgeable in different areas. So I get to talk to a lot of different people about a lot of very interesting things. I'm curious. We've celebrated books that talked about selective mutism and other kind of issues. What did you, as a speech therapist, what was the most fascinating case or client that you had that you were able to really help that person improve their speech?
I've seen a lot of kiddos in my life. Some of the ones, okay, as a speech therapist, you kind of learn the patterns of errors that are typical for kids in preschools, okay? So a lot of times when a child comes in with speech errors, a lot of them, as a speech therapy, you know what they're doing. You know the patterns that they're using to make their errors. And so typically I was able to understand them, even though to a person on the street or a distant family member, they'd go, what are they saying? And there was a little boy that came in and his mom would bring him in and she'd stay because I like having parents stay so I can show them techniques of how to work with their child. But there were several times when I picked up on what he was doing. And so he and I would do our little activities and mom would sit kind of at the back. And I'd say, do you see what he did there? And you can do this. Do you see what I said back to him? So you're kind of training the parent, the families of how to interact with them too and how to help their child. But there were several times I had to turn to the mom and say, what did he just say? And the mom would go, I don't know. But we worked and worked, and over 2 or 3 years, he became more intelligible with his speech sounds. She lives in Green Bay, and there's been a couple times over the years where and he must be 25 by now, that I've bumped into her in a grocery store. And I'd said, how's he doing? And she says, oh, he's doing just great. He's working here, doesn't have any speech sound errors anymore. And so that was when, but I always remember there were times when I couldn't even understand what he was saying. Mom couldn't either. So
that's wonderful. It's wonderful to be able to look back and see how you helped somebody in their life.
Yeah. And parents were usually always very, very thankful. You know, there were sometimes when I go out to a preschool and work with a child, a local preschool, and there's times when parents would bring them into the school where I was based in a middle school, and I had my room set up. I had an actual classroom set up like a preschool room, and they'd bring them to me, and they were always very thankful and grateful for the work I did. So that was satisfying.
That's great. One more speech question and we'll get back to your writing. What kind of signs should parents look for if they're concerned, or what should they do if they're concerned the child might have a speech delay?
Yeah. Well, one thing they can do is to get him evaluated, him or her. Usually there's more boys that have speech error problems than girls. To get him evaluated, and if they're part of a school district, a public school district, which most families are, I would call up the district office and talk with a special ed director and say, I'd like to have my child evaluated. But the public schools are legally responsible for any child age 3 and up. So if your child's 3 and you have concerns about him, I would say call the school district, call your local school, because public schools will have speech and language pathologists on their staff who can do the evaluations. And I would just start there. And they would give them a test. They'd sit down with them and do some little activities and show them some pictures and listen to his speech. And from there, they could say, based on what he's doing, they could say, well, let's wait. Let's give him a little bit more time. Do this at home. Do this with him. Call back. Or they might say, let's get him in. Let's start working with him.
Going back to your book, and where Parker plants a seed, he has no idea what the seed is.
Yeah.
We're experiencing that here in our home. My beautiful wife planted something, back at the beginning of the summer, and it's growing, and we have no idea what it is. There's a fruit, and it's like got this weird shape, and got little prickles on it, and it's kind of a weird yellowish, greenish color, and so we don't know. So we're kind of sitting back and hoping that at some point it will become something that we can recognize. But otherwise, it's just kind of like a fun little mystery that we're experiencing.
Yeah. Does it have a vine, or is it on a bush?
It's not a vine like a pumpkin vine that's spread out. It's like a plant, it kind of looks like
it's going up.
Yeah, it's in where our tomato plants are, but this definitely ain't no tomato.
No. It might be something that a bird brought in and just dropped there, or where did you get the seed from?
Lowe's, just got the
around
Lowe's and buy the seeds, and
yeah.
So if we figure it out, I'll let you know. The folks here know too.
Yeah.
You're talking about FaceTime and being able, you're in Wisconsin, Parker was in Alabama. That's a long car ride, to get to. I think it would be so much fun to have a garden with your grandkids who might be on the other side of the world, but you can still kind of share some seeds and, show each other how the garden is growing and all that other kind of stuff. Just wonderful ways to connect with our kids.
Yeah. And it's so fun because with a garden, it's always changing.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go out there and say something like, look at these weeds. I got to get these out of here. Or you can say, look at the tomato plant. There's a flower on it now. You know, what do you think's should I take that flower off? What do you think I should do? You know, and then all of a sudden they'll see a little tiny tomato growing, and then in the next week, you know, it's bigger, and then showing when you pick it, and then showing when you eat it, however you eat it, whether you chop it up on a salad or putting it in a sandwich, or you're going to make tomato juice with it, you know, so all those steps can still be celebrated with your grandchild, and they could be showing you theirs, you know, like, here's green coming out of the ground, Grandma, but I can't find the carrot. Well, the carrot's a root vegetable. You aren't going to see it for a while. You know, should I pick it? No, I don't think it's big enough for that, you know, and lots of conversations around gardening, and because it's so alive and growing, you know, just like people, just like your grandchildren are alive and growing from day to day, learning new things.
And I imagine, you know, if you're a mom or dad and you're encouraging, if your parents or grandparents are a little afraid of technology, this would be a great way just to motivate them to stay in touch and learn how to use those buttons on that phone so that you can have those conversations with your loved one.
Yeah. And with FaceTime, yeah, because the phone can get complicated. And I know I've called up my grown children, who are almost all three of them are 40, and say, what do I do about this? How do I do this? You know, yeah, it can be complicated. But once you do FaceTime and you get that little icon on your phone, and you want to call them, you click on that, and their address will pop up. So you don't have to, all you have to do is click on their name. So you don't have to go too far for that. Or it's even better when they call you and you just answer it. So
are there more books coming from your imagination?
I have 3 more stories. One story is in the computer, and 2 more I've been developing in my mind. And so I have 3, and now it's a matter of the whole idea and the process of how do you get it to the point where it can be edited, and start looking for publishers, which is incredibly difficult, and finding one that you can work with, and finding the right illustrator, and so on. I was lucky to find an illustrator who lives in the Minneapolis area. Okay. So there again, you know, there's technology. She and I went back and forth on the computer, to come up with the illustrations and what they look like. And that was a huge, this whole publishing situation has been a huge learning experience for me.
I bet.
Yeah.
You should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Parker's Pumpkin and find out more about you.
Yeah. Parker's Pumpkin is sold on Amazon, Amazon.com. And Barnes & Noble should be able to get it. Your local bookstore should be able to track it down, because I really try to push the local bookstores too. I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram a little bit.
Right.
So those would be places.
Super. And so they just search your name, Jean Huxtable Hammersky?
Yeah. And, you know, I have to plug this too. My grandson, Parker, just recently made a YouTube about the book.
Oh, great.
And if you go on YouTube and go to Parker's Adventures, and he's made several several different YouTubes on different topics, even on how to make my granola that he loves. And look for Parker's Pumpkin book, this one.
Awesome.
Then he's sitting and he talks about the book. It's like 2 minutes long. It's real quick, but he did a really good job, and I'm real proud of him doing he did the whole thing, putting up a YouTube on his channel, Parker's Adventures.
Wonderful. Well, we'll check that out. In the meantime, I want to encourage everybody to check out Parker's Pumpkin, both the book and the video. And our guest today has been the author of Parker's Pumpkin, Jean Huxtable Hammersky. Jean, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. Please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life. Join us right now from the beautiful city of Cincinnati in Ohio. Our guest is here today to celebrate her children's book. It's called Bacon's Very Important Christmas Job. Please welcome to the show, Tina Neely. Hey, Tina, how are you?
Hey, Jed. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Delighted to have you on. Tina was one of the many people who were attended the Indie Author Summit with me in Kansas City, and wow, what a great weekend that was.
Yes, it was. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah. As Tina was saying, it's great to be around people who understand the struggle that you're going through and also understand why you're going through it.
Yes. It brings you comfort. It kind of encourages you when you come home to keep at it.
Yeah. So tell us about Bacon and his very important job.
Well, Bacon is actually my pet pig's name. His name is actually Bacon Bit. And when we bought him, he was supposed to be a mini pig. Yes, I'm that person that would actually believe that. And I was told he would be 30 pounds, and he's about 350 now. He still thinks he's a little lap pig, but now his head is even too big to fit in our laps.
Wow.
So he's the one who inspired me on this, writing these stories. So this is the second one in a collection I'm going to do of stories about Bacon. And this one is about how we can help serve others. And so it's told through Bacon's eyes and his journey on how he wants to help, but he can't seem to find the right spot where he fits in, that he can do what he's good at, until Santa tells him he has the perfect job for him.
Am I going to give the ending away if I ask if the perfect job is pulling the sleigh?
It is not pulling the sleigh.
Good. Thank goodness. I can't imagine some of the rooftops that he'd land on. I love that in this book you're talking about service and serving others, and I've had people in the past just say to me, Jed, you're a server. It's natural. I can see it. I spent 15 minutes with you, and I know who you are. Do you think that some people are just naturally called to serve or comfortable with serving, and others have to learn it?
I would say yes to that, and I do think it is like when you start out on that journey. Once you experience it, it's a win-win because you're helping that other person, but it just makes your life so much better when you can do that. Mm-hmm. And when my husband and I deal with a lot of inner city children, and when we tell them that, it's to serve others and to witness on Jesus' behalf, and we're discipling them to be disciples. And we're showing them when you have that servitude attitude that it's a blessing to you just as much as to the person you're trying to help.
You know, it's interesting, Tina. I had a disagreement with a priest in the past, and it took me a long time to realize that it's okay to disagree with your pastor or your priest and to have a conversation about it, have a different point of view. He was telling me that it was wrong for me to, in my educational magic shows, that it was wrong for me to encourage kids to serve and to be kind because you'll get something out of it. You'll feel better yourself. They should just do it because God told them to. And I was of the opinion that, you know, I feel good when I'm helping others because God put that in me to make, you know, to kind of make me feel good about serving others so that I'm going to want to do it more.
I'm on the same wavelength as you. And when I have somebody that's going through a hard time, if they're asking me for just some words of advice, I always tell them, serve somebody else right now. Take your mind off of you and serve somebody else. And that suddenly you will realize you're finding a peace in your heart that you were kind of losing track of.
Yeah.
So I always feel better when I do something for somebody else.
I love that. And I too. It's that, and it's not like a joyful feeling or let's go out and celebrate. It's just, I don't know, for me, it's just a feeling of, I just did what I was supposed to do. I was given an opportunity and I acted on it.
Yeah. I mean, I often pray that he lets me be a blessing to somebody throughout the day. And that like my example is if they don't know him, they'll see him in me. Like they'll want to know what is it about her that makes her so happy or makes her so at ease with her outlook on many things. And so I feel like that's my form of a witness on his behalf. And my goal was to please him.
So reading with your kids is not a religious show. The people that listen and have listened probably heard that I'm a Christian, I'm Catholic. And is Bacon's Very Important Christmas Job a book that a non-Christian or somebody with no faith tradition could enjoy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's not, in fact, I think it would be like I may offend some people when I proclaim that I'm a Christian author because it's not anything biblical about the story other than you're serving. Mm-hmm. But that's just something we should be doing as mankind. We should be helping one another. Mm-hmm. So with the only thing that I have written in my books that would make you believe that it was a faith-based book is that my intent is to dedicate every book to Jesus. Okay. Outside of that, they're just a fun, silly little book for children to read. And they're also interactive because I have added, well, in this particular edition, I have over 500 hearts hidden in the illustrations. So at the bottom of the page is not an actual page number, but the number of hearts that are hidden in that particular illustration.
Wow. What a neat addition.
Thank you. Thank you. So what I like about it is what I've seen with the first book is then if you have siblings and you have the older sibling reading to the younger one, it's still entertaining that older child because they're busy looking for the hearts at the same time. So that kind of bridges a gap and makes it more of like an interactive thing for the family itself to do together.
Now, are the number of hearts on a page, does it coincide with what the book page number would be, or is it?
It does not.
So,
I'm not that good.
So I'm guessing there's probably a part of your mind that was a little. I'm going to mess with people's heads, and we're going to go page 2 to 8.
Well, the printer, when I first sent it to the printer, she texted me back. She goes, "Your numbers are all a mess. They're all over the place."
I love that. You know, pigs are pigs get such a bad rap. And I know there are wild pigs that can destroy crops and things like that. But, I've been told that they make really great pets. in Bacon's case, a really big pet, but really great.
Yes. Very, very intelligent animals. I always brag on him. He was potty trained in one day. So I thought that was very fascinating. And he was an indoor pig for the first 3 years. And then we were going on a vacation, and I told my husband, I said, it takes a special breed of person to let a pig in their house. So we need to come up with a different idea who's going to pig sit for us. And so I have a corn crib in my backyard with chickens in it. I said, let's just put him in with the girls and see how he does. So we stuck him in there a few days before we left to see if they would interact well, and they did. And then we came home, and I said, come on, Bacon. I took him up to the house and opened the back door, and he looked inside, and he looked back at the corn crib, looked inside, and he turned around and walked back to the corn crib. I said, okay, I hear you. So he's been an outdoor pig for the last 4 years.
Great.
And I think he loves that because he gets to root freely. When he was indoors and he would start to root something, I'd say, Bacon, no root. And he would go, ugh. Like he was disgusted with me because I'm a pig and that's what I'm supposed to do. So it's worked out for the best.
What was your reaction when this little miniature pig started becoming ginormous?
Well, he was already in our heart in a ginormous way. So we just rolled with it.
I have a pig story. I was on the road, and anytime when I was traveling with my educational magic show, anytime I'd get to a big city, I'd try to search out the local magic shop back when there were brick and mortar magic shops. And there was one outside of Baltimore, Denny Lee's, and Denny was an amazing, legendary magician, and he had this shop. And so I went to see him, and I was the only one there, and Denny was behind the counter. And what a wonderful, generous, talk about a server. We sat and we were talking, and he was teaching me things, and it was just wonderful. But as I'm talking to him, I heard this scratching. And, I'd look around and I couldn't see and so I'm thinking, well, it's just my imagination or whatever. And I have a feeling that Denny knew exactly what was going on, but he was such a wonderful performer. He just, acted like he didn't notice anything and wasn't hearing anything. And I just kept hearing this scratching and scratching. And probably 10 or 15 minutes later, I just, felt this nose on my shin. And I looked down to see this ginormous Vietnamese potbelly pig.
My grandson, your story reminds me of grandson when Bacon was probably almost 3. So he was probably maybe 125 pounds at that point. He got up on the couch and my grandson was spending the night and he woke up to a pig staring at him in the face.
That's a way to get your day going, I guess.
Yes.
Now, this is going to sound like a silly question, but and it kind of is, but there's also, there's some genuine curiosity about it. Have any animal rights organizations or any people come up to you and say, hey, it's not fun. It's not right that you should be, making a joke about your pig, calling him Bacon?
No one has. And kind of surprised by that, actually. But it wasn't just silliness. It's just in fun. I mean, my husband, when we were at a flea market, and I have been begging for a pig, since I was a little girl. And my parents were not having it. And then when our backyard is pretty elaborate as far as flowers and the garden, my husband kept saying, you don't want this, Gina. You don't want a pig. You just don't want a pig. He can rip this apart in minutes. And I'm like, but I really want a pig. And I pulled out the grandkid card, and I said, the grandkids would love it. And I turned around and I hear this squealing following me behind me. And he had gone over and bought me bacon. And so we brought him home and we put him in a little like wash tub for the night in our bedroom. And he scurried that basket across the floor and back. And it sounded demonic. I mean, the squeals that he made. And I'm like, if anybody tried to break in our house, just squeeze the pig and they will run in the opposite direction because that sound is frightening. I thought, oh no, what have I done? But he calmed down shortly after that, so it's all good.
Well, you were telling me, I don't know if you need that alarm to protect you, because you were telling me before we started recording, your husband is an accomplished wrestler and coach. So it sounds like he could probably protect the house pretty good.
Yes, actually he could.
His ministry sounds fascinating. Can you share a little bit about his ministry with our listeners?
Sure. So he coaches a martial art. It's a Russian martial art style that he picked up when he was on the wrestling team for the Marine Corps. And it's called Sambo. And he brought it back here to the States. And he is very well recognized in that community nationwide. He's done international coaching, and he had a lot of champions through the decades. He's been at it for a very, very long time. And he decided to take the two things that he loved the most, which was his wrestling and Jesus, and join them together. So he serves as a assistant pastor and youth minister in our local congregation, and it's his form of an outreach. So he invites children in to the basement of the church to come try this martial arts. And it's I want to say they charge $20 for 9 months. And that's just to cover the insurance. And if the children can't cover that, then it's covered for them. But he'll bring them in, and then the program starts in prayer. He'll teach them how to beat the tar out of each other. Then he stops in the middle and does a devotion, tell them a little bit about Jesus. Then they go back to wrestling, and then they close in prayer. And then he invites children to come upstairs, and then they learn about Jesus upstairs. And I would say in the last season, we probably had, I want to say, 8 kids come forth and dedicate their life to Jesus. And it started out with that wrestling program.
That's really wonderful. And I love programs that just present the idea. Here's what I believe. And if you're interested, you can listen. If you're not interested, you don't have to listen to it. But it doesn't sound like your husband's putting anybody in a reverse toehold and making it the best.
No, and it's been a wonderful experience. You've seen where parents that may not have come to church, they'll come to church because of that. And so it's like almost a role reversal where the children are witnessing to the parents now. Mm-hmm. So it's very cool.
Yeah. What are your plans for the Bacon series? There are 2 Bacon books out now. Are you planning a third?
I am. So I plan on releasing Bacon's Comfy Wonky Sleepy Spot, and the first, I'm hoping between January and February to release that. And then I have a box set for new babies and up to 2-year-olds, teaching them about the colors and shapes and animal sounds and things of that nature for the younger bacon lovers. So my goal is to have kids kind of grow up with bacon from new to 8.
That's wonderful. Now, being a children's author, was that always something that you dreamed of?
Not specifically a children's author, no. I was raised, my dad was an artist. My parents owned a sign shop, so I did work for them on and off through my earlier years. So I did have some knowledge of layout and design in that respect. I did not see me going on a writing journey because several reasons. One, I cannot spell to save my soul. And then I thought, when I was in college, I remember them saying, you have a real talent here for writing, but I would have to go and have everybody check it because of grammar. And I was just weak in those areas. And then I read an article of another author that had written that he could not but spell or write either. So his first picture book he made was just done in pictures. And I thought, he made the comment, you surround yourself with people that do what they do well, and you do what you do well. And I thought, at this stage of life, who knows how many days you have left? Let's just do this. Let's just go for it and take his advice. And it worked out for him because people might recognize the book, The Hungry Caterpillar. And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do here. I have a message that I want to share, and I'm not going to let my shortcomings get in the way of what I am good at. Yeah. So here I am.
What kind of reaction have the books received, and what kind of questions have kids asked you when you're going out and presenting at a reading or an author visit at a school?
So the book has onomatopoeia in it, and so I've had schools call me or text me within so many hours after my leaving and saying, all the kids in the school are now walking around going oink diddy oink diddy oink oink oink. So, it is very well received. It is very precious. I have had people that know me that bought the book, bring their kids by me. I had one little guy, he still had a pacifier in his mouth, and he was oink diddying me with his pacifier in his mouth. I've had people send me pictures of their kids saying it's their favorite new book. And so that has been like really energizing to me. Like, okay, everybody sees what I'm trying to say here about bacon, and the message about being loved and accepted is my plan to carry out through the series.
Yeah. I think that's such an important message to kids, to let them know that they are loved and they're accepted. And I think as we're teaching kids that and reminding kids of that, I think most kids will pick up on the reverse of that the people that they're meeting also deserve to be loved and respected and included.
I agree. And I think that's our responsibility to instill that into them.
Yeah. Well, we should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Bacon's very important Christmas job and find out more about Tina Neely.
Okay, so it is available at my website at TinaNeely, NEELY.com, and then it will also be carried on Amazon.
We've had a great time speaking about bacon and pigs and inner city wrestling programs with our guest. She's the author of Bacon's Very Important Christmas Job. Our guest has been Tina Neely. Tina, thanks so much. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you. Yes, it has. I appreciate the time with you.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids. We hope you enjoyed it so much that you're determined to make sure you listen to the next exciting episode of the show. We also hope you enjoyed it so much that you're inspired to write a 5-star review and post it on whatever podcasting platform you're listening to the show on. And if you're listening on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, please let your local station manager know that you love reading with your kids. We'd love for you to, I'd love to speak English, but I'm trying to say that I'd love to connect with you on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at Jedley Magic on X. We have a great YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. You can see and listen to many episodes of the show on YouTube. You can also find all of our Drawing With Your Kids and our STEM is Family Fun videos. We have a great website we're real proud of. It's readingwithyourkids.com. We have a great blog there. You can read all of our Reading With Your Kids Certified Great Read reviews on our blog. You can also visit our Certified Great Read Wall of Fame to find the next book that you want to add to your children's or your family library. There's also a contact button up at the top of the page you can use to send us a message and let us know what you love about the show. Let us know what we could be doing better, and let us know who you would like to hear on a future episode of the show. We really love suggestions about who to have on next. If you're an author, you can also find out how you can be a guest on the show and learn about our very affordable and very effective promotional services. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we'll start by thanking our guests, Jean Huxtable Hammersky and Tina Neely. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Judy Hu, Stella Sheree, Hannah Bosage, Alyssa Montiero, Devin Hill, Riley Oluwu. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.